we go.
Okay.
All right, let's do this. We
Yes.
are live from the SmartRecruiters booth at
Oh.
HR Tech. Everybody, if
Yes,
you're
you
watching
are.
on YouTube,
Yes.
you can see our beautiful booth presented or provided by our friends at SmartRecruiters. And what better first
Hello.
guest to have the newly minted CEO, Rebecca Carr, who was just on the show with us a few months ago when you were
That's right.
In
interim
Vegas,
CEO.
right?
In May.
So
Vegas.
really quickly,
I'm gonna take credit for that.
Those that didn't see that or hear that interview.
That's never happened before, right? A white man taking a credit for something that you've done.
Not the
I know,
CEO,
it was all- it
man.
was your
don't Mess,
podcast.
don't mess with the CEO.
Yeah, that's what did it.
So
That's flipped the board over.
You have a,
Doubtful.
You have,
Doubtful.
you have a historied past. You don't have to go into everything, but just give us kind of a quick elevator pitch on you.
On me. HR tech product leader for 16, 17 years or so. Third or fourth ATS, I think, here at SmartRecruiters. So recruiting tech veteran for sure.
A second time at SmartRecruiters.
Second time with SmartRecruiters. 8 years in total here, 8.5 years in total.
Yeah.
Started in 2014. Built, deployed the first version of SmartRecruiters. Left, came back. CPO for, I guess, 6-7 months. And then here I am.
So what made you come back? What made you come back? I mean, because there's always that thing, right? And the
Yeah.
boomerang stories are always really interesting to me.
There's still a lot to solve here.
Yeah.
My break was I went to background check. I went to Checker.
Yeah.
And I actually dipped my toe in earned wage access products, so like payroll fintech products. They're actually very fascinating. At the time, I
Okay,
thought, yeah,
fascinating.
But they're like the level of customer connection is missing there.
Oh,
I'm more
yeah.
of a people relationship person,
Oh,
and
yeah.
recruiting is that. I started as a recruiter. That was my first job. So to come back and actually build for that persona was attractive to me. At the time, SmartRecruiters was going through a bit of transition. It was right after Jerome stepped down.
Yeah.
And I think we were looking to reemerge as a really strong B2B SaaS player enterprise, which is what I love.
Yeah.
I love the global nature of this business. I like to travel. I love our customers overseas.
Yeah.
Why not? It was a good moment.
So you have the honor of being the first interim CEO to become CEO on the show. I'm wondering,
Oh, really?
do they throw a party? Are there farm animals and wrestlers? Like what happens when you
Where did
get
farm
dubbed-
animals come in?
Oh, it's not quite as sexy as you'd think. I mean, you sign a piece of paper and then you put a note in Slack and everyone gives it lots of emojis and then you move on because
No
you've been
birthday
doing the
cake,
job.
no,
because you've been there.
You've been doing the job, yeah.
So quick question when it comes down to, we see a lot of, and good, bad, or indifferent, but just your perspective, we've seen a lot of CEOs come in from other industries that really don't have a base in what we do. And this industry is so much different from marketing or sales. Yourself, Adam Godson, both recruiters,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Come up through the ranks, and now
Yep.
you're both CEOs.
Yep.
What do you think that gives to you? Obviously, the experience, the background, but I mean, is it an edge?
I would like to think it is.
Yeah?
I mean, customer empathy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it takes one to know one. If you've been in the seat,
Yeah.
if you actually understand how this tech works, where the key challenges are,
Yeah.
how a recruiter actually interacts with a hiring manager, and you've been there and done that,
Yeah.
you design tech differently. Hiring is, like, generally speaking, one of the most democratized processes we have right now. Like, you've got a bunch of recruiters sitting out there that are essentially facilitating hiring managers making decisions, all these interviewers in the field. It is very, very, very collaborative, and yet most recruiting tech systems are designed just for recruiters. That's a problem. It breaks down.
Yeah.
And I think what you see from a product like Paradox and what you're starting to see from products like SmartRecruiters is just empowering hiring managers to do more and be more effective and be more efficient so that recruiters can be more strategic. Yeah.
By many metrics, it's tough being an ATS these days. A lot of competition, a lot of efficiency.
Yep.
And most notably, you probably read the story about Klarna, who is allegedly
Just ditching it all.
trashing Salesforce
Ditching
and
it all.
Workday. So I'm curious your perspective on the current state of things and what kind of threats you see out there to the business.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what they're doing is fascinating. It's definitely possible. So if you think about the way that most people engage with all of these HR tech systems, it's just a big process of a lot of administrative action.
Yeah.
And the reality is, with AI and intelligence, you shouldn't even need to log into any of these tools. If you had a singular interface or agent which you engaged with, you asked questions, you asked it to do things, you would theoretically engage with a Slack, a Teams, an SMS, WhatsApp, some sort of productivity tool within your organization, and it would connect all the dots behind the scenes. More and more, especially even you mentioned or we talked about Workday as it relates to Klarna. I mean, even Workday is starting to really lean into ecosystem and connectivity because we all can't be something for everyone. So be a specialist in orchestration, expose those APIs to your end users, and let them build interfaces that are adaptive to the personas that are engaging with that UI. It's actually a really interesting idea, and I think it's what's going to have to happen in order to drive adoption. Because in order for AI to work, you need to have great data, and to have great data, you need to have adoption, and none of our tools have any adoption. So how do you create adoption? You create better, more personalized experiences. The more people engage with those personalized experiences, the better and more intelligent it gets. But you have to let go of the UI. We all got to stop being so precious about our user experience and our buttons and our colors. I mean, I think the threat to most of us is going to be if you don't get open quickly, if you don't take your platform and make it API-able, you're going to lose, is my hunch.
Well, and data is, I mean, AI is pretty much becoming a commodity. Data is where everybody, that's the superpower for every organization. And you're an applicant tracking system, so you had better gather that data. And it better be able to index it incredibly well. I mean, it's one of the things that we've seen over the years, and I'm sure you've definitely seen customers asking for all these customized things that really kind of screw with their data at the end. Not to mention you being able to prospectively aggregate a lot of that data to understand what the ecosystem actually looks like. So all of your nursing or all of your high volume or what have you, how can we change that so that we can say, okay, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, these are the standards that we're putting in place so that we can actually leverage that data better, because the data is what matters. We need that clean data.
Well, it's an interesting question, because when you were saying that, my first reaction was one of the things that screws up SmartRecruiters data sets the most is actually internal mobility. And people look at me and they're like, why? Why internal mobility? And I'm like, oh, because you have this very thoughtful recruiting process. You put it in the workflow. It changes at the country, at the region, at the job level. Great. And then you open a job and someone internally goes, oh, that project manager job, I really want that. So what do? Instead of applying, they go on Teams and they Slack the hiring manager and they have a whole conversation.
Backdoor
and then they interview offline. No one even knows. Their CV is not even in the database. They end up deciding they're going to move forward with that person. They have a different comp, a different benchmark than even what the job did, but they're great. They're high performers. We really want them to have the job. So then they make the decision, they hire them. What do? They throw the CV into the applicant tracking system against the job. They move it to hired. They have no skills that are relevant to the job description you just said, and no interview feedback, no notes. And then suddenly, poof, the AI goes, what the hell just happened to me? You gave me nothing to work with there. What's going on? And I think it is about that one fact. Why didn't that internal candidate want to go and engage with the hiring manager through the ATS? Something was broken about that experience. So I think it starts with building experiences that are adaptive to the culture and community of the organization that are. If I knew that I had as a good example, we use Slack almost entirely here at SmartRecruiters. If I knew that there was an internal job and I could just forward that directly through Slack to the hiring manager, by doing that, it picked up a signal that I was interested and immediately added my employee profile to my ATS. And then my discussion with them was recorded as notes. My system is learning and gleaning some information, but it's because I'm bringing that to the flow of work of the employee that is there. And so our systems are not designed to do that today. It's something that we all as vendors need to lean into.
Very rigid, instead of fluid.
Yes. So that flow of work, though, is super important. The more you can bring those activities to places where people are already operating, the more they're adopted, the more insight that just naturally falls into the system, the better the intelligence, the better the matching. And then all those other tools, like a recruiter being matched an employee to a job, just fall into place.
You touched a little bit about the marketplace, vendors, new products and services.
Yeah.
There are more companies that make it easier to build apps onto marketplaces. Just curious about your trends, what you're seeing, the amount of growth, any kind of cool technologies that you're seeing being built onto SmartRecruiters that we should pay attention to?
Yeah. There's actually some of the coolest and most interesting to SmartRecruiters are the people doing things that are workflows we know won't ever go away, but have just made that workflow a lot better and a lot cleaner for everyone else. So as a good example, we have a partner in the Netherlands that is essentially building a new agency portal. Who likes agency portals? Nobody likes agency. I have an agency portal. We haven't touched it as a product team in 10 years.
Wow.
But agency recruiting is just what happens, especially in certain markets. So we've got probably
Especially
40,
Europe.
50, 60,000 agency hires that are made a year through our platform. These types of apps and experiences are things our customers latch on to immediately and provide impactful business value and also better learnings. I think some of those are the ones that are ultimately going to benefit from this moment of consolidation in HR tech. Because someone like me, it's an easy value add. I can sunset my code from the past that I was never going to invest in anyway. I can give better experiences. I can drive better adoption. So in this case, this company was called They have a really cool thing. But there's a bunch of little ones like that. We're working on a lot of with a lot of partners that use design systems to embed in our UI. So Vizier's doing this with us right now. Hired Score is using some of our stuff to embed. So those people that are, again, not just saying to me, hey, I want an iframe in your UI, which isn't going to help anybody. I actually want to find a way to funnel my data to you through a user experience that people are going to engage with. I'm finding that they're getting the most attention from some of the big vendors.
That iframes are definitely the proverbial hammer on a screw. So Amazon Q just came out and they're talking about actually having developers to be able to go in and do updates. Virtual developers, robot developers to be able to do updates moving backwards, right? And that takes a lot of a technical team's time to do all that technical debt, that maintenance, so on and so forth. Where do you see this going? Because that's the first iteration going backwards, obviously prospectively moving forward. Where do you see, as a tech CEO, where do you see this going? And what does that mean for development and your development team? Well,
I'd say as a CEO that sits there and talks about investment profiles all day with my board, there's more and more pressure to do two things that are a bit counterintuitive. One, be an innovator, drive more innovation, and two, reduce or improve R&D efficiency. R&D spend is a percentage of revenue. There's a lot of pressure to drive down and down and down, with the assumption from these investors that you're going to go and invest deeply in AI products, first and foremost in the R&D function. And there's a lot of cool stuff that is coming out. We're starting to deploy a lot. Despite all of the product investment, some of the things that we're going to be coming out with in the next couple months, we're actually not growing our R&D team because we're finding ways to implement tools and technologies that replace 3, 4, 5 heads in R&D. So what it's actually doing, it's allowing people to move fast and innovate, but also improve their business profile. So suddenly your rule of 40 company becomes a little bit easier if you're not having to keep throwing an engineer at the problem. And I think there's going to be an expectation from the investment community that people do that a lot more. It's certainly something that I was used to and was ready for the sales and marketing efficiency conversation, but the level of depth to which investors also have R&D experts and former CTOs that are leaning into this exact problem and pushing that on their portfolio companies is more than I expected.
Oh, the investor community. God love them. You're a good size organization. You're global. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has taken a bit of a hit in organizations in the past year. Some companies publicly abandoning it. Just curious about your take on that, how you make sure that you keep SmartRecruiters diverse, a lot of flavors, and make sure that you stay on track to keep that.
No, I mean, we we still see some of our customers asking for add-ons or partners within the ecosystem to like measure and understand, but certainly not as much as it was like 2-3 years ago. Yeah. I mean, at SmartRecruiters, it helps just by investing in representation. People want to work for people that they see themselves in. And I think that means starting with a strong leadership layer. I can tell you as a female CEO is a good example. The amount of individuals that sort of come and say, like, how do I develop? How do I get that skill? It's not something I've seen in my last 3-4 companies. But you could say the same for racial, ethnic, any of the categories that one could invest in. And for me, it's about recruiting and finding balance. You're not going to rip or replace your bench every single month, but when you have the opportunity to, like, being very holistic about your interview process. And when you do that, you see a lot of natural momentum within your organization. And we have certainly seen that here at SmartRecruiters. Yeah.
So I want to get back to the ecosystem again real quick, because you smile really brightly when we talk about the ecosystem.
It is a bright smile, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so
it's a CEO smile.
We've seen a ton of companies go to a marketplace ecosystem kind of scenario. Some of them thrive, and some of them just it burns, right? Crashes and burns.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two models? Why are some thriving and why are some not thriving? And why will SmartRecruiters thrive?
Well, and SmartRecruiters has actually not thrived in the marketplace world at every moment of its existence. Yeah. I mean, we have over 400 partners that sit out there, and I would argue we've failed at doing it really well. Even though we have, great integrations and we can claim that there's good capability there, we haven't had focus around why we have a partner and the value that they bring and how that partner competes and speaks to our world. Everyone has it's been agnostic. Everybody can integrate in the exact same way. The reality is there's certain problems I want to solve, and there's certain problems I definitely don't want to be solving.
Oh, yeah.
And to be very clear with my partner ecosystem about where I have that line.
Yeah.
And then seeking to pick the best ones, like actually not just saying I'm an open door, but who's the best people analytics platform I can do? What's the best skills matching platform that I can go to choose?
You have to be very clear with your CTO too, because if I know CTOs, they want to build everything.
They want,
just about, right?
Or there's like I have this conversation with some of my product leaders all the time as we think through channel and like opening up a partner integration that we think is going to drive revenue. Well, the more like diluted you become there, 500, $1 million, 1.5 million from this one, that one. Yes, it adds up, but it's wildly distracting. Yeah. Like, who are going to be the people that you can lean into that are going to build with you?
Right.
Not just take my API and consume it, but build with you.
Right.
Build an experience that actually aligns to your mutual product strategies, and then go to market with you in a really effective way. Not every partner is willing to do that. It takes relationship building. It takes a lot of time and evaluation of sort of where you each want to go, what your roadmaps look like, how you tell the story together. And so I'd say focus is going to be the big difference between those two. There's a spray and pray versus targeting. We're going to go back to job board analogies. There you go.
It always goes back to that.
Yeah, it always goes back to that. So 2025 is right around the corner.
It is.
I know as CEO, you're the visionary. You're the big picture. Give me some of your goals and objectives as we go into 2025, and feel free to drop the IPO date.
Goals for 25. So we're in growth mode. We're in transformation mode. In the next couple weeks here, we're going to be doing an announcement, which we're really excited about, really like our 3.0 vision for what this company can be. There's a lot of urgency in this space about driving change. And we say we're AI-powered software for superhuman hiring. I think you're going to see that in the product that comes to market. We've gotten a lot of interest in some strategic partners that I think we're gonna lean into and have really deep connectivity to. That's awesome. Like, I'll take that as an opportunity to make the mutual ICP of our brands really successful in this new world. So growth. We're on fire. You might see some new markets in there, here or there. I don't know.
Hello. TUTs.
Expanding the footprint.
Well, global's our bread and butter. That's like I mean, it's hard to be a strong player in multinational. Like the
talk
sheer,
about that though, because it is going from France to Germany
is hard.
Incredibly hard. You've got two countries incredibly close to each other that are totally different from a culture standpoint, and I would assume also from a partnership standpoint, the partners that you guys bring in place, not to mention also the experience that you provide to your customers. So talk a little bit about that, because that's not easy.
Yeah, and frankly, I remember when Jerome made the call to go invest here deeply. It was like 2015 or so. I thought he was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, here's the founder like shiny object syndrome. We're like, we're falling in that path. Ended up serving us very well as a business because we doubled down in functionality that was unique to some of those markets that is actually very complicated and deep and hard to roll back on if you're just adding it to an already very robust system. Yeah. It's allowed us to differentiate. It has required that we put a lot more people in some of these markets. So you can deploy SmartRecruiters, you can be sold, implement, use, support totally in French, totally in German today. That is a challenge when it comes to sales and marketing efficiency, but we've figured it out, actually. We figured out how to work that motion at scale, and it has been something that's allowed us to surpass some of our competitors that have tried to enter those markets. Yeah. So I don't want to lose any ground there. Yeah. I think it's actually something we continue to lean into. And so as we think through our next generation of products, very focused on that ICP, like enterprise, global, multinational is important. Like we have to check that box. Yeah.
What are some of the greatest threats to the business in 2025 that you see?
Oh, I'd say generally speaking for most of best of breed ATS, it's the suite pressure that comes from the Workdays, the SAPs, the otherwise, especially in our non-ICPs. So when we originally built the business, it was just, we'll take every customer, obviously, with a startup, you know? Yeah. You're seeing the people where our product strategy hasn't entirely aligned get a lot of pressure from the suite. You know, think about brands like in software and tech and otherwise. I mean, Workday is grabbing significant market share. SAP success factors, we're seeing a lot of Oracle Recruiting Cloud come back in deals, things like that. And it is because these teams are being pressured to drive efficiency. And if you've got a free recruiting module and you're not hiring a lot, justifying and finding that value prop is hard for some of these teams. So we're actually leaning a lot into content around how to have that conversation. But I mean, the pendulum is swinging back to suite, and that's something we're constantly thinking about.
So what can SmartRecruiters do to be able to help TA professionals, HR professionals have that discussion with the C-suite? Because we talk about time to hire, cost per hire. CEO doesn't care about that. Yeah. Doesn't care. No. They want to know how it impacts the bottom line. And we have the data we just have to take it further. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really on you. Mm-hmm. Not that you don't have enough on your shoulders already, but it really is on you to be able to help them, not in a couple of different ways. Have that data, right? That data all the way through, and it's a TA, so talent acquisition and talent management, but have that data, and then to be able to create a narrative to pitch. Yeah. So that's why we need SmartRecruiters, because we're actually going to put butts in seats to be able to drive revenue. Yep. So that, I mean,
big theme, productivity and efficiency. Yeah. Like that's the conversation even my CFO is having with all of my teams. Productivity and efficiency. How can you deliver a lot more with less? I don't want to add one more body, but I need to grow. What are we going to go do? Yeah. And that is probably the number one reason why people need to be looking at automation, AI, how their vendors are implementing it. That challenge is you have to, we expect this from our customers, but if you're not a SmartRecruiters customer, the amount of pressure you should be putting on your vendor to go solve this problem, because your CFO is not going to give you any more money to buy an add-on product. So how do you think about getting the most out of the vendors that are in your ecosystem today? And for me, that's about telling an automation and AI story with our new products, which in some cases are just part of our core suite, because that's what recruiting needs to be versus go write me another, 10x check on what this is going to, this is what it's going to give you. I'm sure over time there'll be premium opportunities for us to invest. But at the end of the day, in order to sort of retain and grow our existing base, we need to give them more productivity. And so we're telling that story The challenging piece being, in order to tell that story, people need to adopt the tool. So where you see vendors like SmartRecruiters putting a lot of like early AI products into the space or into the product so that they can get data, so that they can start to tell the story proactively with their customers, and then they can layer on more and more experiences that are going to just amplify that message.
That is Rebecca Carr, everybody, newly minted CEO at SmartRecruiters. Rebecca, for our viewers and listeners that want to know more about SmartRecruiters, where do you send them?
SmartRecruiters.com.
Easy enough.
Easy enough.
Another one in the can, Chet. We're live from HR Tech in the SmartRecruiters booth. We out.